our agenda today. Just wanted to go over a few quick housekeeping items. Please note that everyone is automatically placed on mute for the duration of this town hall, but you have the chat function available to you if you'd like to ask any questions, have comments on the items you are hearing throughout this hour and a half that we have together, or even if you're having some technical difficulties. We have a number of CHC staff who are monitoring the chat and will be able to support you directly via the chat function there. As I mentioned just a few moments ago, but if you are just joining, we have interpretation set up for this town hall in English and Spanish simultaneously. So again, if you're just joining, please make sure to click on the interpretation icon and select your preferred language, as well as mute original audio. We are recording this town hall and we'll be sharing out the recording and materials afterwards. We are also on Facebook Live at this time through our CHC Facebook account. So if you are joining us through that page, thank you so much for tuning in. And please go ahead and use the comments or questions function to chat in any comments or questions that you may have. With all that said, I'm going to go over and turn it over, to our CHC Chief Strategy Officer, Dr. Michelle Burton.
All right, thank you so much, Grace, and welcome everyone to our Slate for Justice. We are super excited about the opportunity that is ahead of us to really, foster some change. And I know that many of us have been working and advocating for this change for quite some time. And so, locally, there are a lot of things happening, and that is the purpose of today's conversation, is to look to some of our humbled leaders like Senator Holly Mitchell, who we're so happy to have with us today. And just to give the background on Senator Mitchell, which many of us are quite and very much intimately aware of her tremendous accomplishments as our senator. But as a third-generation Native Angelino, Senator Holly J. Mitchell is the proud daughter of career public servants and the protege of community leaders who instilled in her a passion for service. Mitchell is a mother and has developed her professional life to creating a California where all children thrive. She continued her family legacy of leadership when she was named the first African-American to chair the powerful Senate Budget and Fiscal Review Committee. The senator's groundbreaking successes include nearly 90 bills signed into law. These bills focus on improving human services, expanding access to health care, defending the civil rights of minorities and the undocumented, and reducing the numbers of children growing up in poverty. Taking a moment because we do have interpretation, and I want to make sure that they decide to come back, meaning I'm not talking too fast. So in addition to her chairmanship on the Senate Budget and Fiscal Review Committee, Senator Mitchell also chairs the Senate Select Committee on Social Determinants of Children's Well-Being and the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. Senator Mitchell sits on the Senate Health Committee, the Joint Committee on Rules, the Public Safety Committee, the Labor and Industrial Relations Committee, the Insurance Committee, Select Committees on Mental Health, and the Status of Boys and Men of Color and Women, Work, and Families. Senator Mitchell has been cited for her outstanding leadership by more than 100 community and business groups, including the Courage Campaign, Sierra Club, United Cerebral Palsy Association, the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber of Commerce, and the Women's Foundation of California Board. She was named the 2019 National Leader of the Year by the Fathers and Families Coalition of America, and this year received the Budget Champion Award from the Provider Alliance to End Homelessness. She currently serves as a legislator in residence at Mount St. Mary's University and was appointed to the Los Angeles Coliseum Commission Board. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Senator Holly J. Mitchell.
Michelle, thank you very, very much. And I'm embarrassed. I should have given you the abbreviated version of that bio. So we would not have worn poor Pilar out before we even got started. And so Pilar, I wrote a note to myself in large letters that says slow. So I'm going to try to remember to go slow to allow for translation. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to moderate a really critical conversation. about some of the ballot initiatives that I think will have a disproportionate impact on our community. So it's so important that everyone is aware of them and has the information they need to make the best choice for themselves, their families, and their community. I love the fact that this is being convened by the community health councils, and I want to thank its leadership who's present today and acknowledge that for over 30 years, the Community Health Council has been working to ensure the health, the neighborhood, and the economic resiliency for South LA keeps moving forward. I don't know if you can see my nameplate, but I'm wearing my South Los nameplate today in full recognition, and including my vote necklace that members of the Legislative Women's Caucus are wearing. So I've got Vote South Los. There you go. Again, I really appreciate you inviting me to participate today. Again, I represent the 30th Senate District, which spans from Cheviot Hills to downtown, Pico, Fairfax to South Los Angeles. And as a native of this community, it gives me great pride to represent one over 1 million Angelenos. As you all know, we're 8 days from this election, and I'm really glad that we're able to have this important conversation. You know, I'm the mother of a Gen Zer, and so we've had this conversation multiple times this election cycle when I have said this is the most important election of your life. And appropriately so, he's challenged that and pushed back. But it really is, particularly for this next generation of leaders across all sectors. Because this president, who will, empower this Supreme Court, this collection of initiatives, this district attorney, this member of the Board of Supervisors are really going to be in a key position to help bring forward policies that will last into the next several generations. And so we have got to make sure that our community is prepared and equipped to step up in a meaningful way. I was proud to be a member of the legislature and make the decision alongside the governor to mail ballots to every registered voter, given the magnitude of this public health pandemic, particularly on our community of South Los Angeles. And I have to say, I am so proud and thrilled at the voter turnout. I saw some statistics just this morning where 30% of registered voters in the state of California have already voted. And in South Los Angeles, the second supervisorial district, 20% of voters have already cast their ballot with 8 days to go. And so I think we're doing something right by making sure that people are engaged, informed, and have the resources they need to represent the interests of their family. So today, we're going to share more information about what's on your ballot. We'll be answering questions and share information about your voting rights and more. This afternoon, Community Health Councils has 3 speakers to discuss Propositions 15, 16, and County Measure J. Our agenda will include Dianne Segura, CHC's Director of Policy and Government Affairs, Tracy Gray with the 22 Fund, and Isaac Bryan with Reimagine LA. We're going to get started with Dianne to again talk about Proposition 15. Dianne is a recognized national leader in the areas of advocacy, public policy, government affairs, national and state elections, and small business creation and retention. She served in local and state government, is a former Obama staffer, and has an expansive public service portfolio. With that, Dianne, walk us through Proposition 15.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Welcome. You know, we are 8 days, if we count today, we're 9. But when CHC decided to stand up and organize because we knew health was on the ballot, we knew that it was our chance to ensure that there was a voice for California in areas of equity and opportunity. As we launched our Slate for Justice positions, it was important for us to include not only Proposition 15, Measure J, and 16 in today's discussion, but it was really looking at How in this critical voting season can we make sure that we share information about those measures on the ballot, what your voting rights are, and information as we are in the last handful of days to November 3rd. Know that of the 12 propositions that the organization took a position on, Proposition 15 was one of 6 that we took positions on. There's a total of 12 propositions on the ballot this November 3rd. On behalf of the 270,000 residents, we took a position, and we looked at 2 things when we looked at Proposition 15. We looked at Proposition 15, which looks to tax on commercial and industrial properties to ensure that there's further education and local government funding for not only the state, but LA County specific. We looked at these propositions, and in 15 in particular, and said, how does this address equity for our community? And how does the proposition benefit the community of South LA and the residents that make South LA home? As I mentioned, Proposition 15 would tax commercial properties at a market rate that would result in billions worth of additional funding to the state in the areas of local schools and local governments. This proposition, if you've heard of it, has also been termed a split roll proposition. You may ask, well, what's a split roll? What do they mean by a split roll? Proposition 15 splits commercial properties and residential properties in 2 different tax rolls and works to tax them differently. Nothing changes for a homeowner, but it does if you own a commercial property. If voters choose to pass Proposition 15, what does it do? It creates an increase in property taxes, specifically on big businesses. Think big box businesses. Small businesses would be exempt, along with farmland would be exempt. It would raise billions for schools, local governments, as I mentioned, in particular, at a critical time as we look at what is happening and what we've been living through during this pandemic. Cities like Los Angeles, Inglewood, Compton, and many others would see the largest tax change in California history in over a generation. As a voter, you might ask, well, the Proposition 15 creates a split roll. How do current homeowners and commercial properties get taxed today? Today, homeowners pay property taxes based on the price they originally paid for when they purchased that real estate, which is typically a lot less than what a property is worth today. This method of taxing both a commercial and a residential property in the same way is based on the original price that property was purchased. It's capped right now at how much that tax could increase each year after that. Yet it didn't used to be that way when we looked at taxing both commercial and residential. It was in the late 70s where there was a call to restrict how commercial and residential properties could be taxed. At that point, there was a cap. Whether that was purchased in 1986, 1992, or even as early as 2019, whatever that purchase price, both commercially and residentially, that's how you would be taxed. So as we look at not only the shortfalls that are happening because of COVID-19, because of the community that is not only always needing to ensure that we're creating equity, we find ourselves with looking at this proposition and saying, what are the benefits? How would South LA benefit? Well, if voters choose to pass Proposition 15, where homeowners remain the same, nothing changes, but we look at big business, we look at commercial properties throughout California, the largest amount of money and funding for schools and local governments would come to LA County. We're the largest share of a taxpayer base in the state as a county. So what we know is that those that are commercial property owners, right, really would be looked at the current market value and would be taxed at the current market value of that commercial property. At CHC, we asked ourselves, if this is the largest tax change in California history in generation, what's the projected revenue for the state if voters pass Proposition 15? We understand that a net additional figure of anywhere between $6.5 to $11.5 billion would come to the state of California for additional revenue. 60% of that funding, additional revenue, would be laid out for cities and counties and special districts. 40%, we estimate, will go towards schools and community colleges in the area, or should I say in the state. What does it mean? It means that LA County is poised to have the largest share of the estimated projected revenue that would bring more meaning and essential funding, not only to schools, but to local governments as we are living through the times of today. We know that as we live through the pandemic, it is the local governments and the schools that have seen the extreme impact to the budgets that will have direct impact, not only in South LA, but through the entire state of California. Standing with CHC today and saying yes to Proposition 15 is saying yes, we want commercial properties to be based on today's market value that brings over $6.5 to $11.5 billion additional funding to the state and to LA County. We are interested in creating equity. That is what we have built our name, our reputation, and our programs in the last 30 years. Passing Proposition 15 continues to ensure that, but most importantly, brings money, much needed money, to South LA, specifically to our schools and to the local governments that I mentioned of not only the city of LA, city of Inglewood, Compton, and the surrounding neighborhoods. One thing that we know is that we're not alone in this fight. Many of the speakers today, as well as others that are on our town hall today, are not only advocates, but are standing with those that are in favor of Proposition 15. That includes our teachers' unions, other labor groups, specifically the Zuckerberg Initiative, which was established by Facebook founder and his wife, have contributed and want Proposition 15. Alliance of California for Community Empowerment also has taken a yes position. San Francisco Mayor London Breed, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti also are in support of Proposition 15. If you ask yourself, how did we get here? You only have to look at is Proposition 13. I mentioned that in the 70s, the state found itself capping any property tax being taxed from just the original purchase price. But it's been in the last 20 years, or I'm sorry, 4 decades, not the last 20 years, the last 4 decades that actually 20 different propositions continue before the voters to try to address what took place in the 1970s. But it's big business groups like the California Business Roundtable, the anti-tax organizations that see this as an attack on them. It is the California Chamber of Commerce and their PAC that are fighting to bring this much needed additional revenue to the state. We're looking to you, the voter, whether you are a first-time voter, a second-time voter, or a voter that is always standing firm, to be with us, not only in Proposition 15, but 16, Measure J, and the additional 5 propositions of the 12 that we have said yes to.
Excellent. Uh-oh. It looks like Dianne may have frozen. Dianne, you done?
No, I'm here. I just wanted to wrap it up and make sure that people were aware of who was with us and who had interest not to see Proposition 15 for our state.
Excellent. And if people go to slateforjustice.org, they can see the positions on the additional amendment propositions beyond what we're going to talk about today. You know, Dianne, there's this fascinating documentary running on PBS right now called The First Angry Man. And it's about Howard Jarvis and the beginning of the entire tax revolution. And it was so fascinating to me. I was not of voting age when Prop 13 passed in 1978. But to see the history about what led to this tax revolt and how Prop 13's passage in California led to this whole movement across the nation.
Yes.
And when people approach me as a policymaker and want to talk about, why is our per pupil spending so low? Why are we having these relatively new challenges, housing unhoused? We can look back to the passage of Prop 13, when that began the process of really strangling local government and the resources that are available to it. You want to comment on it? And then so that's just one thing off the top of my head. People should look up The First Angry Man. It's an amazing history on the tax revolt, now started in California. But Dianne, this is my question for you. I appreciate you acknowledging all of the organizations that are in support. But there are quite a few commercials that are running in opposition.
Yes.
With some organizations that, when I look at the name, I think that they're the kind of organizations, civil rights organizations, that would be supporting Prop 15. What can we say to people so they really can get to the root of who's supporting it and why? What would you suggest people
Well, I think that you're mentioning Proposition 13 and where we are as a state and the history of how we got here. Funding for local schools comes from property taxes. Whether that was Brown versus Brown, that public advocates, championed and won in the courts of California. They really just have to look at how do schools get funded, and how do local governments not only continue to build revenue, and that is from taxes. And if we found ourselves, and thank you for mentioning the PBS special called what was it called? First Angry Man?
The First Angry Man, and they're referring to Howard Jarvis, who was the key architect behind Prop 13. Yeah. The First Angry Man.
That likely will share not only where we have been from the 70s, but when we think about our schools and the ongoing funding that's needed, it's based on property taxes. So I think community members need to take a look at understanding that if funding comes locally for my local school, which is maybe 2 blocks away from my home, how do they have enough for books? How do they have enough for resources? It's based on property taxes. And we have an entire real estate portfolio that continues to grow in California, and especially in South LA. There is interest to create economic development as the region continues to grow. So I would say to community members to not only continue to look at what we have listed on our website, the source you mentioned, but to really understand that local governments and local schools rely on revenue. And if we are tied as a state with revenue dollars from the 70s, and we are years ahead, responsible in recent time for COVID-19 issues and living through the pandemic, testing, having remote school, we don't have to think any further than that. So I would applaud folks to read a little bit more, understand how funding happens at the local level and what it means to our local schools and where we have found ourselves as a state that we're looking to try to strengthen if voters are choosing to vote for Proposition 15.
Brilliant. That's why, as the slide says, stand up, organize, health is on the ballot, slateforjustice.org. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the second initiative we're going to talk about today, which is Proposition 16, which would reverse Prop 209 and reinstate equity in decisions around higher education and corporate contracts. To talk about Proposition 16 is my good friend Tracy Gray, who is the founding and managing partner of the 22 Fund, an impact growth equity and advisory firm with a mission of creating clean, quality jobs of the future. Tracy's committed to increasing the global competitiveness of manufacturing companies and specifically women and minority-owned businesses. Tracy's on the board of directors for Apple Life Digital Solutions, a publicly traded startup incubator, and Venture Studio. She serves as the treasurer secretary of the investment committee of Cal State Dominguez Hills Philanthropic Foundation and Endowment. She's been named one of the 50 women of influence in business in LA and is featured in a recent released article, The 200 Women Who Will Change the Way You See the World. Go ahead, Tracy Gray.
Thanks, Miss Holly. I mean,
you're a baller shot caller. I'm glad to know you. Talk to us about the importance of Proposition 16.
Well, thank you for having me today. So Proposition 16, I have to admit, I'm not an expert on Proposition 16. I am expert on the impacts of the proposition, which is what I'm going to speak to today.
And that's what we want to, and that's the whole point of today's conversation, for people to personalize this ballot. And that's why you're here, for you to be able to help people understand the death nail that 209 was to women and people of color in South LA, and why Prop 16 will reverse that. So that's why we want to hear from you.
Thank you. Now I feel better for not being an expert. So, you know, Proposition 209, if you don't know, passed almost 25 years ago, and it banned affirmative action or considering race, gender, ethnicity when deploying public assets. Now, a lot of people know that that meant getting into universities or colleges, and some know that for government contracts for women and people of color, it hurts them. But what a lot of people don't know is the venture capital sector and the tech sector and the startup sector and the small business sector are greatly impacted from 209. And Proposition 16, and why I support it, will reverse that, what's been happening for 25 years in one of the most progressive states in the country. Now, to make it more personal, in 1999, I entered venture capital. And in 1996, when 209 was passed, I was still an engineer. Now, if you gave me any of the work I was working on in 1996, it would be like Mandarin to me. I don't know anything about engineering anymore. And that's how long ago it was. And then in 1999, when I entered venture capital, the numbers of women and people of color in venture capital and getting access to the capital was so low that for Black women receiving capital, it was 0.0006%, literally a rounding error. And now when you come 20 years later, it's still the same. Now, that's impossible if you know how many women and people of color are going into tech, starting businesses, or in venture capital. And that's part of that is from Proposition 209. Now, for people to understand why this is, you have to look at the pension funds. The pension funds, the three largest ones, control over $1 trillion. And what they do, the pension funds are there for our retirees, the state employees, city employees, local employees. The three biggest ones are CalPERS, CalSTRS, and the University of California. CalPERS is public employees, CalSTRS is teachers, and the University of California is the university system. But also the County of Los Angeles has one of the largest pension funds of any municipality or county in the country. So that is all that money is going around, and they have to grow that capital. And the way that capital is grown is by investing it. And part of those investments go to investment firms like mine, but not quite like mine, because 98.7% of all financial managers around the world are white men. So they're not, and therefore the majority of the capital going to startups, going to businesses, making an investments are in white men. CalPERS itself paid out $1.3 billion in fees to their managers who manage that capital, and 98% of them were white. But when you look at the pension funds, African Americans make up 17% of the contribution into pension funds.
Because those are public employees. And we know that the vast majority of public employees in California are people of color.
Yes, 69% of the members of CalSTRS are women. And so, as Holly was saying, that's really our tax dollars, because our tax dollars pay those public employees. So what's happening is our tax dollars are making rich white men richer globally, not just in California, but the pension funds invest in fund managers like me around the world. So we thought, Proposition 209 was just university enrollment, but it literally impacts people of color around the world. And therefore, here in South LA, in Los Angeles, it's really impacting. And I hope I'm not speaking too fast for the interpreter. I get a little worked up. So I hope they're keeping up with me. So what we want to do with Proposition 16 is to have the pension funds invest in women and people of color owned funds. Now, there's research out there, and there's tons of research that shows you that when you invest in people of color and women, you have higher returns, which is what investors want. But they keep investing in the 98% of their capital in white men. So they are literally leaving money on the table. And there's been...
And harming the pensioners, to make up a word, who again are more reflective of our community. The 69% that are women, the good numbers that are women are people of color. So they're not helping me and the health of my pension by investing in this small group of uber rich white men. So it doesn't even benefit me.
No, and they always say that their fiduciary duty is to have high returns, is to make their money back and help the pensioners.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not doing that if they keep investing in 98% of their capital in white men. Now, the majority of the people are women and people of color. So as I said, I was an engineer, and engineers are about logic, right? 1 + 1 = 2. And when 1 + 1 = 5, we don't understand. Mm-hmm. And so this doesn't make sense. And I've been on a terror, I say, to overturn 209. Senator Mitchell, sorry, it's hard when you're my friend and I have to say Senator Mitchell, invited a group of us, including Michelle Burton, up to Sacramento to speak to the Women's Caucus about this. So it was really the women who really got this going and put this on in front of the legislators and then got it on the ballot. And so this is the importance of 16. It really is can be the economic engine for South LA, for Los Angeles County, if you allow more women and people of color to have access to those investments. Because this is when trickle-down economics actually works. If you remember, Reagan used to say trickle down from the rich to the lower income, and that never worked. But when you invest in women and people of color, fund managers like me, we then invest in companies that look like us, who then hire people who look like us. So that's what's going to happen in South LA. We have so many initiatives in South LA around entrepreneurship, but it doesn't matter if there's no capital. Everyone saw how during the PPE loans, the loans from the stimulus, I believe it was 94% went to white-owned firms.
Right.
So we know the government will help stimulate the economy and it always goes to the same group of people. So people say to me, well, why should the public sector pick and choose winners and losers and invest in women and people of color? Well, they pick and choose winners and losers all the time, but it's never women and people of color who are chosen. So when you get this capital in our hands, like I said, there's been research after research after research. I could probably build a library of the research that has been done on women and people of color and our returns on investment. But there's been no research done on the return on investment of white men. There's no research saying that white men are less risky than people of color. None. And we know why, because every economic downturn, every company that's gone under, who was at the helm? So we need Californians to impact not only South LA and California, but the entire country to get through the pandemic. And the reinvestment should go into women and people of color. And when Proposition 16 is passed, the pension funds and their staffs and their consultants who control this capital can no longer use Proposition 209 as an excuse, because that's what it's been. Mm-hmm. It's been an excuse not to invest in women and people of color. And if you look where all the capital is going right now, the Fed has the lowest interest rates ever. So when you wonder why
Okay, you say the Fed, I'm gonna speak on behalf of, we got about 100 people on this call, so I'm gonna check you in terms of terminology. You mean the Federal Reserve Bank?
Sorry, the Federal Reserve Bank. And cut me off when my time is over, because you can see I will just keep going. The Federal Reserve Bank, the interest rates are very low. So when you hear about all of us kind of hiding at home, not being able to work at our jobs, but Wall Street and the stock market keeps going up and up and up, because there's a ton of capital out there looking for a place to go. And they're investing it in each other, right? So once again, the federal government is picking winners and losers. But if that capital that's just flowing around out there, and there's tons of it, don't let anyone say there's not enough capital. There's tons of it. If it was going into women and people of color, that's how we make sure our economy comes back. That's how we pick the real winners. That's how we save the pensioners' funds. Because you keep hearing that, there's a problem with pension funds. We're not going to be able to pay it. Well, because they keep investing in white men who aren't making the capital back for them like they could. So, as you can hear, my passion around this.
So let me ask you one clarifying question that I'm just going to bookend your remarks to talk about the educational piece. So again, I'm going to be mindful of the almost 100 people who are on. That is the clearest explanation I've ever heard in terms of the public pensions and the responsibility, not only because it's public money, but whose money it is, and that the people who are investing it and profiting from it should at least be as diverse as the people who earned that money in the first place.
Yeah.
So I hope that you will be kind to me and the others and give us as succinct and clear definition of what venture capital is.
And I'm sorry, can you hear my television in the background? I had it on pause and now it all of a sudden came on. So a little bit. Okay, so venture capital is the fuel for companies.
Yes, so, we can't hear it. You need to pause it again.
Okay, you know what? Can you ask me that question again later and I'll go pause it and then go on to the next person? I'm sorry.
Well, what I'll do is I'll fill in on the education piece and you can come back.
Okay.
So Prop 16 is twofold. And I am proud to be a member of the Legislative Black Caucus and the Women's Caucus, who were the champions to get it through the legislature. You know, an initiative can qualify for the ballot really two ways, either through collection of signatures, like Prop 15 would qualify for the ballot, or it can get to the ballot based on a legislative body passing a bill or whatever to get it there. Prop 16 was ACA 5, Assembly Constitutional Amendment, carried by my colleague, Assembly Member Shirley Weber from San Diego. And so that's how Prop 16 got to the ballot. So it also, the other piece of it really deals with equity in admissions in our publicly funded institutions of higher learning. So as Tracy said, people were really focused on whether or not you could get in college or not. The impact that it's had, as we're talking about health is on the ballot and the impact it's had on us, when we look at over the 25 years, the number of admissions of students of color into our UC system, into our CSU system, and the professional schools. You think about the business schools, the law schools, the medical schools. We have lost perhaps a generation of women and students of color who could have gone through these publicly funded institutions. And so when we as the Black Caucus or the Women's Caucus is working with the administration, for example, to get more women or people of color appointed to the bench in California, we feel the impact of 25 years of this lack of focus on equity in admitting people to these institutions because the numbers have shrunk significantly. That's why health is on the ballot. As we talk about South LA and making sure that we have healthcare providers who are from the community and want to serve the community, fewer were able to go to publicly funded medical schools as a result of the passage of Prop 209. Proposition 16 is not about quotas. Quotas have never been legal in California. They weren't legal when Prop 209 passed. Prop 209 sold itself to people 25 years ago as if we lived in a colorblind society. And we know, probably more significantly this year than last, or the last several, that we don't live in a colorblind society. That's why I too am strongly encouraging the passage of Prop 16. She's back. So give us a quick definition of venture capital, then we're going to move on to Measure J.
Okay. Sorry, working from home, right? So venture capital, like I said, is the fuel that drives innovation and company growth in the world. When you start a business, you need some capital to help grow it. Typically for women and people of color, it meant loans, maybe, because sometimes we don't even get that.
Right.
But you can't grow a company as fast as you need to through debt, because you have to service that debt as you're trying to grow. Venture capital is capital you don't pay back until your company exits in some way. Someone buys it, you go public, something like that. So it's called equity because that person will take a portion of your business, typically 15 to 20%, but it allows you to grow super fast, super fast. So, but we don't have access to that. Once again, because 95%.
So we can't get venture capital and we can't get the bank loans either.
We can't get, no. So, but we can change that if more women and people of color control the capital. A friend of mine once said, and still says, finance is not about money. It's about power. So think about that and think about who controls money and therefore power. And who's gonna have to let it go, some of that power. And we know there's plenty of power and there's plenty of money. So Proposition 16 allows us to move from the moment that is George Floyd to a movement that were the protests to mainstream. Proposition 16 allows us to mainstream equity. So I ask everyone to vote yes on Proposition 16. Thank you.
What a powerful way to end the statement. It moves us to mainstream. Thank you, Ms. Gray. I appreciate you. We're going to move on now to hear from our third speaker. to talk about Measure J. We're going to hear from Bryan from Reimagine LA. Bryan is an activist that has long led movements in social justice, issues surrounding racial and economic justice, and serves not only as co-chair of the Reimagine LA Coalition, but as the current founding director of UCLA's Black Policy Project. Bryan is a member of the executive board of Justice LA Coalition and has served in the LA Mayor's Office of Reentry and the Reentry Unit. Bryan is a published scholar and leads the public policy work of the $1 Million Hoods Project at UCLA and serves as co-chair of the LAUSD Task Force on School Policing. Saying all that to say, he's a very busy brother.
The fact that you said Bryan and not Bryant made me laugh, and we can tell the people why later, but always good to be with you, Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Pleasure to be here with you. Talk to us about Measure J.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And Miss Gray, that was incredibly powerful, by the way. My phone was blown up with just all the information that you were sharing from other people watching. So thank you. And thank you to those who have spoken before me. Measure J, or Measure Justice, as I like to call it, is a LA County ballot measure, right, that changes the county constitution and forces the County of Los Angeles to earmark at least 10% of unrestricted county revenues, which is about $500 million to $1 billion, depending on the year we're having, for alternatives to incarceration and community investments. And how Measure J got to the ballot was a long journey. Some folks have said it was rushed to the ballot and it came quickly this year, but if you've been paying close attention, it was a measure 10 years in the works. It just didn't have a name or a form yet. It started when we moved to question the size and scope of our criminal legal system here in Los Angeles County. We operate the largest jail system in the world, and our county jail is the largest mental health provider in the state. Knowing that, folks have been organizing for years and years and years to look closely at how much of our discretionary funding goes to our carceral system, goes to our systems of harm. For the last 6 years at $1 Million Hoods, we've been mapping the human cost and the fiscal cost of mass incarceration here in LA County. Black Lives Matter has been moving for 7 years. The Strategy Center and other organizations have been moving for a long time. And Justice LA came about to force the County of Los Angeles to cancel its contracts to build 2 new jail facilities, to really reimagine what it means to have a care first model and not a cage first model. A cage last or a cage never model, if you ask me and my friends. So what we did is we got the county to cancel that contract. And once that contract was canceled, an Office of Diversion and Reentry was set up prior to that. A Civilian Oversight Commission body was set up prior to that. Measure R gave that civilian oversight body subpoena power recently. And then an Alternatives to Incarceration work group was launched to look at, if we're going to cancel the contract to build a new women's facility and a new men's facility, what is the continuum of care that we need to build out? And that table featured a dozen community members and a dozen stakeholders from the county system, from the Department of Mental Health to the sheriffs, to probation, to the district attorney's office, but also community members who are directly impacted. It was led by Dr. Bob Ross, head of the California Endowment, one of the largest public health funders in the state and in the country. It was a health-centered discussion for about a year. A year we met, it was a consensus process, a voting process, a democratic process. I say all that to say, when it was all said and done, we had a list of recommendations, 114 recommendations, a report, and we delivered it to the county this February, right before we all went indoors. That was my last county meeting. And we delivered that to the Board of Supervisors. They prepared a video for it. They adopted the report. They accepted the report. They launched an initiative inside the CEO's office, and then they did not fund it. Private philanthropy stepped up to fund it. And then in the supplemental budget just recently, they moved about $70 million towards that Alternatives to Incarceration initiative, knowing, part of my language, but damn well that's not going to build our freedom dream or build out the continuum of care that community worked and has been organizing and has been calling for the better part of a decade. If you mix that with the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, Dijon Kizzee, about 5 other people in the last 2 weeks from the Sheriff's Department just here in LA County, you find yourself with a political window and a political moment, unlike something we've seen in a long, long time. More folks took to the streets this year than at any point in American history. And I, for one, don't want to wait for another political moment like this. I actually hope we never have another political moment like this to do what we know is right. And that's where Measure J came about. So a lot of us organized under the Reimagine LA Coalition, 150 organizations, folks who don't usually get down together. You've got the United Way, and you've got LA Can. You've got Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. You've got Mayor Garcetti, right? You got folks that don't always find themselves in solidarity behind something, but this is a righteous ballot measure. And to get on the ballot, the normal process requires 250,000 signatures. We can't do that during a global pandemic. So we had to get the Board of Supervisors to vote to give up some of their own power and authority by returning this back to the people to decide how our budget dollars should be spent. And some folks said we weren't going to be able to get 3 out of the 5 supervisors to give up their right to control the budget. And they were right. We got 4 out of 5. Who stepped up and said that this is the right thing to do. And they voted to move this to the ballot to let voters decide. The main reason because Measure J allocates at least 10% of unrestricted revenues to alternatives to incarceration and community investment in perpetuity. That's forever. I'm not coming back every single year asking for my 500 million. I'm not gonna come back next year asking for my billion and watch it get chopped out of the budget and then, you know, crumbs get thrown out to community like usually happens. This is forever. This is ours. And so they put that to the voters to decide, and I think the voters are going to decide to do it. It should be said, we faced some opposition along the way. You know, the first thing that folks said was, this is ballot box budgeting. And we don't do that, and we don't like that. Even some folks that I love brought that point up. Which is why my first phone call was actually to our state budget chair. I called our state budget chair and I said, Miss Senator Mitchell, let's have a conversation about ballot box budgeting and what this measure is and isn't. And she reminded me something that I've said probably 100,000 times in the last month, and a budget is a statement of our values. And 10% for alternatives to incarceration and community investments should be a floor and not a ceiling. And it doesn't bind the hands of future boards because there's so much flexibility in a county budget of $36 billion. We should be making these investments in good times. We should probably be making even larger investments in bad times, right? Because we always seem to find the money for our carceral system, which is about $3 billion a year at the county. And right now we are criminalizing the poverty that the COVID-19 pandemic is creating, instead of investing in the continuum of care that folks need to really thrive and promote community well-being and safety in the truest sense. So Senator Mitchell was actually the first endorser of this measure. So thank you for that. And since then, we've picked up everybody and their mama. The only people not behind us are those who have a current interest in the status quo, in our systems of harm.
And who are they?
The Deputy Sheriff's Association, who by themselves has moved over, I believe, $2 million into this race. In fact, they took some money out of an independent expenditure they had for a county supervisor race just to fight us. They have bought $2.5 million of TV ads in the last 2 weeks to run from now into the election. And they're lying to the people, quite frankly. One of their favorite things to do, and you'll see it on the No on J website. Actually, you won't, because you're not going to go to that website. But they make it look like the LA Times has not endorsed us, because when this hit the ballot, the LA Times questioned how quickly it got to the ballot without talking to us. And then they sat down and talked to us, and they realized that they had made a mistake. And they actually wrote in the paper, we made a mistake and we endorsed this measure. And this measure is righteous and you should vote for it. And we're telling you to vote for it. That's the LA Times position. Anything that says otherwise is a lie. They put out flyers with Black women in scrubs, ignoring the fact that SEIU 2015 has endorsed Measure J. That's the heart of Black women in scrubs, right? Labor has endorsed Measure J, the Carpenters Union. SEIU 721 is even coming around as of this morning. Folks know that this is an opportunity to create jobs rooted in care and healing, even if it's at the expense of questioning the size and scope of our carceral system. The one thing about this measure that really got law enforcement up in arms is that none of this money that's earmarked can go to the sheriff, the DA, probation, or the courts. It doesn't say you have to take money from any of those institutions. But I do believe if you're going to have an honest conversation about the size of the county budget and where it's going, you have to talk about the 40% of the unrestricted county revenues that currently goes to those systems, right? And so we're going to have that conversation. Implementation motions are already being drafted. Just gonna tell y'all all the tea because we're family here. One was slated to go before the Board of Supervisors before the vote, and it scared me to death because I don't count my chickens before they hatch. And so they're gonna hold that motion until the 10th. And I'm encouraging everybody to turn out and vote. Well over 1 million ballots have already come in from LA County, but we've got to push further. We've got to tell our friends, we've got to tell our family because the misinformation campaign is well underway. But we deserve this measure. And the people put this measure on the ballot. And the people have wanted a say in our criminal justice reform and in our county budget. Measure R is proof of that. There were very few things on the primary ballot as popular as Measure R, which passed with over 70%, right? And this is another example of that. So vote for Measure J, vote for Measure Justice. Yesonj.com is our website for more information or ways to take action. And thank you all for having me today. It's really always a privilege and an honor to be on a panel with such incredible Black women who I admire. And whenever I see Senator Mitchell is moderating something, I try to tune in.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. I appreciate you. The feeling is mutual. So if people go to the yesonmeasurej.com website, they can see the full LA Times quote and reference. So they can just see the contradiction in terms of what's being sold to them.
Correct.
Excellent. Because I have seen the TV commercials where they show that little piece of a quote from the LA Times. So I'm glad to know that I can go to the website and see something different. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. This is our opportunity to now go to questions from residents of South LA. I understand that they're going to be brought forward magically through the power of Zoom to be able to pose their questions. I think the first person we're going to hear from is, if I'm correct, Brianna Maldonado.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Brianna Maldonado. I'm a current resident in Compton, but I'm currently staying in the dorms at UCLA.
Hey, all right. You see that, Mr. Bryan, one of your students. Okay, go Bruins. All right, Brianna.
Okay.
Stay safe.
I'm trying. As a first-time voter, I'm skeptical about voting by mail after hearing about the fake ballot boxes and the many ways that your vote can be disqualified, like your signature not matching the one on your driver license. Is it possible for voters like myself who are voting by mail to turn in their ballot at a voting poll and vote in person instead? Or how does that process look like in order to alleviate that skepticism that some people have?
Beautiful. I'm going to answer a portion of it and then open it up for our other panel members to answer. First of all, what I heard you say that the signature has to match your signature on your driver's license. My understanding is that your signature on the back of your ballot has to match your signature on your voter registration form, not your driver's license. So that's the signature that has to match. Anybody else want to assuage her concern about participating in vote by mail?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna vote in person at the voting polling center in near here, because I got mine really late. I was told I was inactive when I haven't missed a single election since I was 18. And I won't tell you, and that was what, 40 years ago almost. So you can definitely trust mail-in voting because you can track it here. You can track where your ballot is, and we don't have a deadline like Texas or Pennsylvania's trying to do, where it has to be there by the election day. It just has to be postmarked. So you can trust that that's going to happen. But I mean, I love voting in person, so that's why I'm going to drop mine off, so you can do the same. That's my opinion.
You can. So you can take that ballot. If you really want to go and use the voting machine, you can do that. I would take the ballot with you so they can destroy it there, whatever they do, to make sure that you're not voting twice. So if you want the experience of voting in person and actually physically voting in the machine, you can do that. And you can start that here in LA County as soon as today. And so there are hundreds of voting centers that are already open. Some, great big places like the Forum in Inglewood and not Dodger Stadium, but maybe Dodger Stadium the Staples Center, or in your ballot, or if you go to the Registrar of Voters, you can find voting centers that are open now. What I would strongly suggest to you, Brianna, and you, Ms. Gray, is that you not wait to November 3rd. You know, it is really important that we get out early to make sure that you're not waiting in line in this COVID environment. So you can go vote in person. I have to tell you, I have voted already, and I chose to drop my ballot in one of the new voting boxes, the yellow and blue voting boxes. It was right around the corner from my house. I literally walked there. And a couple days later, I went on the website to track, so I know that my ballot was received. So I think this election, probably we have more options available to us than we ever had in history. With the ballot being mailed to you, and the various ways you could turn it in. So I want to congratulate you for being a first-time voter. You know, you gotta, like Ms. Gray said, I too have never missed an election, so this is an important habit to start. And we want to congratulate you, and it does something to you when you're able to put that voting sticker on and wear it with pride.
And tell all your friends.
Yes, and for them to tell their friends too. Thank you, Brianna. We appreciate you. I think Mr. Ramirez is going to continue to let people in to pose their questions. I see.
Yes, we have Amada.
Amada.
A question.
Okay.
Mi nombre, ¿sí me escucha?
Yes, can you hear me?
¿Sí me escucha? Oh, buenas tardes. Mi
Okay,
nombre
so good afternoon. My name is Amada Burgos. I am a leader from Broadway, Manchester, and I'm also a volunteer in my community in Avalon Gardens. And my question is, I decided to vote by mail. What comes with my ballot?
¿Sí me escuchó?
Were you able to hear me?
¿Sí me escuchó?
Were you able to hear me?
Albert, is someone going to translate Ms. Amada's question?
Yes, the interpreter was interpreting her question.
Por correo, ¿y qué viene con mi boleta?
I decided to vote by mail, and I want to know what is included with my ballot.
So the question, and folks can see it, if I decided to vote by mail, what comes with my vote by mail ballot?
Okay, so what comes with your vote by mail ballot is a whole lot of pages. So be sure and look on both sides. Don't do what I did when I realized, I'm like, there's something missing. Oh, turn the page over, Senator Mitchell. There's a whole nother series of questions. So be sure to look on both sides of the paper. You have an instruction sheet. And on the instruction sheet is where you actually get to tear off your I voted sticker. So tear that off and put that on. The instruction sheet you don't have to mail back in, but make sure you include all of the pages of the ballot, put them in the return envelope, and like the screen shows, you see this says signature of voter. You must sign it there. And like Brianna said, that's the signature that must match your signature on your voter registration. And you put the date on it, and then you're done. Thanks for the question, Amada. I appreciate you. Gracias.
And our next person is going to ask questions from Bertha Lamas. We can unmute her.
Welcome, Bertha.
Hola, buenas tardes. Yo soy Berta
Yes,
Lamas.
hello, good afternoon. My name is Berta Lamas, and I'm a community member for the city of Compton. I wanted to ask you, I want to do it by mail. Where do I have to go to turn this in?
So first of all, I want everyone to acknowledge Bertha's mask game, because Bertha's mask matches her blouse. I love that. Bertha, staying safe. Good job. So Bertha's asking, where do I drop off my vote by mail ballot? And so you see, first of all, there's no postage necessary. You can mail it. I was very proud as a voting member of the legislature to make sure that we've covered the postage. Even though it's a lot of pages, you don't have to put any stamps on it. You can take it to a drop box like I told you I did. And inside my ballot, it gave me a list of about 4 or 5 of the drop boxes that were in my neighborhood. That's how I know I could walk right over to Queen Anne Park and find a drop box. Any of the vote centers in LA County, as Ms. Gray said, she's going to go drop hers off at a vote center. And so if you go to the website, like here, it shows you all the vote centers in your community. But when you get your ballot, it will show you mail drops as well as official vote centers of where you can take it. It's all right there in your vote by mail ballot that you'll all receive. You good, Bertha? Okay, keep wearing that.
Muy bien, siga con ese cubreboca maravilloso, con esa blusa que le queda muy bien. Quédese.
Who do we have next?
Yes, lined up we have Renee Parker. If Renee Parker can get unmuted.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ms. Parker.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm a part of Best Start Broadway Manchester Leadership Group, and I'm invited into that session by my church, True Love Missionary Baptist Church on 119th in Main. So my question is, what does the ballot, official ballot drop-off box look like?
That is a great question, and we've got a beautiful image right here. It's the yellow and blue and white. When you see them in person, they're bigger than your regular blue U.S. mail, mailboxes. So it's a big, brightly colored box. You see it's got a lot of information on there. It tells you no postage necessary. The registrar of voters is guaranteeing the safety of our boxes, that they're emptying them frequently. You see this gray box over to the right is not the official. We saw the news reports that there were a couple of instances where those boxes were used. There were fewer than I got the impression of when I watched the news. And our Attorney General and Secretary of State have stepped up to make sure those boxes have been removed. So the boxes, the official boxes, are yellow and blue. You see the lavote.net on there. And they look more official to me than that gray does. I wouldn't put anything that was important to me in that gray thing. It didn't have any official language on it, no website, no nothing. Just something about put your ballot here. My ballot is too precious to be sticking it in any old box. So it's the yellow and blue box. I'm sure some of you all saw on the news where one of those boxes was set on fire, but the registrar has already, jumped right on it. They were able to contact all those voters to make sure they had the opportunity to cast their ballots and be counted. So that's what the official drop box looks like. Appreciate you, Ms. Parker, for your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last question is coming from Kenneth Carson. Can we have Kenneth Carson unmuted, please?
Good afternoon, Senator Holmes. My name is Kenneth Carson. I'm a Willowbrook resident, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to go to the poll or use a drop box yet, but if I were to decide to go to the poll, where would I go?
Excellent. Well, the new thing with these county vote centers is, before when you had a polling place, there was one place we were all assigned to go. And if you were like me in many elections, I would decide, I'll vote after I get off work. You might run late, and I was having to go across town to leave my job to get back to my neighborhood to get to my polling place. Well, now with the voting centers, you can drop your ballot off at any official voting center anywhere in the county. So you could vote at a voting center close to home or one close to work or whatever works for you. And so you see here when you go to the website, LA County Vote Centers, it shows you all of the voting centers and where the vote boxes are all over the county. You can hover around your own neighborhood, so it just shows you where the voting centers are. It will show you if it's an early voting center that you don't have to wait till November 3rd, you can go in. And I believe they'll also show you the hours of those voting centers. And so it's made it very easy. If you don't go to the website, on your ballot that you receive in the mail, it will also show you voting centers in your close proximity to your registered address, as well as the vote boxes.
Excellent. And I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. I just want to confirm that I can track my ballot if I put it in the ballot box, if I go to do a drop box thing. I can track that?
You can, because that's what I did. I put mine in a drop box, maybe it was like a Thursday. So I gave it a couple days. And so by about maybe Tuesday, I went online and checked. And there it was. They gave me information. Now, what I understood, what I didn't do, which I wish I had, you can go on LA Vote, I think .net ahead of time and register your name and email address and even your cell number. And what they will do is once they get your ballot, you will get an email or a text. So that's probably the best way to do it. If you've not already dropped off your ballot, you should go on to lavote.net now and register, and then you'll get the email letting you know that they got your ballot.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy voting.
I have a quick question, comment.
Yes.
So as everyone can see, how Senator Mitchell has been involved in each one of these propositions in some way, and all the issues we're talking about, including just getting a stamp on making sure we don't have to put stamps on our ballot. So this is my personal endorsement, no one else. I hope you all know she's running for LA County Supervisor in District 2, correct? 2. And just think of the impact she can have for Los Angeles County. Many people don't know that the county supervisors, each person controls more money than any other elected official in the country. And I think that's right from what I hear. And if Holly's on there, they'll be all women. So if you're in District 2, definitely vote for Holly Mitchell.
Oh,
I appreciate your personal endorsement. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I think for me, what's so important is that we are having these community conversations. And I hope that Community Health Council and this slateforjustice.org will consider a way in which we can continue to talk about what's important to our community, not just during election season, but ongoing. We don't have enough opportunities to talk about civics. I never took a civics class in school because one was never offered. And so these conversations about voting and our rights and understanding it are, family conversations and community conversations that we have to figure out a way to continue to have. But when we have our community-based organizations that do this Slate for Justice and convene us, it's a great opportunity for us to all talk about what kind of communities we want to raise our children in and grow old in. So I appreciate you inviting me to participate today. Okay, so now are we opening it up to additional questions? Someone help me out in understanding where we are in the agenda. I got so into answering the questions. Let me get back to my schedule here.
If you have time to still be with us, we've got 15 more minutes. So happy to open it up for questions via Facebook Live or that are coming in via chat so that we can answer questions about now to November 3rd. If you need to learn if you're registered, if you need to ask questions, do I need an ID? Do I not need an ID? Please pose them in our chat box and or for those that are on Facebook Live.
That's great. And I would say that familiarizing, as the questions are coming in, I would say familiarizing yourself with this very resourceful website, lavote.net. Every question you could possibly come up with, they have an answer there. Trust me. So if you're not sure, if you haven't received your ballot like Ms. Gray hadn't received hers, go to lavote.net. And this is the one thing I have to say. Don't everybody wait till November 3rd to figure out if you're registered or realize you don't have your ballot. please don't wait to the last minute. The beauty of mailing the ballots were mailed the first week of October. Most people in LA County had their ballot by October 5th. We've had a full month to, at your leisure, look at the ballot information, check these websites, hear from amazing panelists like we have today. So please just don't wait to the last minute where you might run out of time. lavote.net is the great place to go. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions in the chat,
Senator
Dianne.
Mitchell and Tracy, this is Grace from CHC. I'm just lifting up a few questions that came in through our Facebook Live folks.
Great.
I'll point to a resource that has more specifics around Proposition 16. There were a few questions, very specific questions to the proposition came in, including, specific dollar allocations that would go due from the proposition. What are some specific impacts to the community, and any ways that the proposition would help avoid or defend future court challenges. So I just wanted to truncate a little bit. There were a lot of very specific questions. So is there a good resource that we could link up folks so they can make sure to be well-informed and educated about the proposition?
First of all, let me say that there aren't resource allocations in Prop 16. I hope that they're not conflating it with Prop 15. So Prop 16, there are no resource allocations. It just takes California back to the way things were before Prop 209 passed. So it's just about, equity and allowing inclusion of underrepresented groups in the contracting process, as well as access to publicly funded institutions. And there is a website on Prop 16. I don't know what it is. So Dianne, if someone at CHC could perhaps find it and put it in chat, I think that would be helpful. Unless you know it, Ms. Gray?
I think it's voteyesprop16.org. But I'll add it into the chat too.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Great, thank you both. Just lifting up a couple more questions from residents that came in. One is asking about the vote by mail option. Could you again just walk through ways to ensure that their vote by mail ballot is, secure and it goes, to the right place, and that they're following the right steps? A couple folks did chat in just concerns about if their ballot will get, tampered with, or what if my vote gets changed without me knowing. So for everybody to ensure that these are the official and right steps to make sure your vote by mail ballot gets counted.
Well, I appreciate those questions. And let me just say that I'm a permanent vote by mail person. So I vote by mail every election. And I just have an extremely high level of confidence in our Secretary of State, in our county registrar of voters, and the process. And like I said earlier, the fact that we have a longer voting season, the fact that they've opened up these multiple voting centers, plus these boxes, plus you can mail it. I've never felt at risk when I do my voting, seal that envelope and sign my name. I have every level of confidence that it's going to get to the registrar and it will be handled appropriately there. I have never heard of, in California, situations where ballots were tampered with. I just haven't. The new electronic voting machines, now I've never experienced one of these new machines because I've been voting by mail now for maybe about 10 years. That is a way that you can go into the voting center. Again, I would suggest you go early to actually cast your vote. But again, hundreds of thousands of California residents. We have 40 million people live in California. About 21 million are registered voters, and already 30% of that 21 million registered voters have already voted. And so I think it's safe. I think it's easy. I think because of my concerns around the transmission of COVID and not wanting people to have to stand in line and be in public places for prolonged periods of time, this is the best year possible to practice your vote by mail experience. And I hope it works out for you. If not, feel free to go to one of the voting centers and you can vote then.
Great, thank you. One of the questions is actually a follow-up from a little bit earlier when we were going through some of the details about what comes with a mail-in ballot. Someone was just asking, with the signature that's, absolutely required as a part of your envelope, is there a quick and easy way to check what your registration signature may look like? Some folks are saying, it's been a while since I remember what that one looks like, and I want to make sure I put the right one on my envelope so it's counted.
That is the question of the day. I don't have the answer. Dianne, do you know?
Yeah, two things. Well, actually 3 things, maybe even 4 things. So I'm going to give you an 800 number. So for those that want to just quickly, it may take a minute for the phone line to be answered, but it is a usable number, and it's 1-800-815-2666. So again, it's 800-815-8666. So you want to call and find out from LA County what is your status, right? So if you know you have a ballot, then that literally means you are active and you are on the registration rolls. If you're unsure and you did not receive a ballot and you want to know what does my signature say? I just want to make sure I know. That 800 number, the county will direct you whether what your status is first, right? And what your signature looks like. That will come from the Secretary of State's office. They will direct you, and they will not only direct you, but they will follow up. Their customer service right now is above A++. They are not only calling you back to make sure that you know and did you find the information you wanted, or moving forward the specifics, they're ensuring that you also have been empowered with the information they give you. So I would start at that 800 number first. Your second option is to go to lavote.net, which is the county's election office, wealth of information on charge of LA County and all your voting rights and information. Another location you can go is Secretary of State's, which is www.sos.ca.gov. So if your phone number or via a website, another possibility is if you go on our Slate for Justice page on our website, chc-inc.org/slate4justice. You will find on the bottom section of our page not only an email address, but a direct phone number too to the Secretary of State's office to find out what your registration signature looks like, and that will be shared with you. But because we're in the last 8 to 9 days, whether you count today, moving forward, you want to make sure that you visit a voting center or all the options I've just given you. If you go to a voting center, lavote.net gives you not only where you would go, you punch in your address, but if you do choose to go in a local voting center, know that from this past Saturday up until November 2nd, voting centers are open from 10 to 7. Additional ones that are up to 400 in LA County by October 30th. October 30th through November 2nd. They're also open, all those 400, a total of 400 by October 30th from 10 to 7 in LA County specific, and you can go to any of them. And if you choose to go on election day, there are safety precautions you do have to have. For those that maybe don't feel comfortable to even go up and give your ballot, there is curbside drop, just give it to someone. So you don't even have to get out of your car. So on election day on November 3rd at any of the vote centers, it's 7 a.m. to 8 o'clock. So I've answered the question in one way, but I've given you a little bit more info as we head to November 3rd.
One thing I would add, I know it's been covered on the news a lot, that it says that if people show up without a mask, they'll be offered a mask and glove. You know, you can get a mask and gloves if you choose there. But if people refuse to wear a mask, they will still be allowed to vote in a separate area to keep them safe and keep everybody else safe. So I'm encouraging everybody to wear a mask when you walk out the door. But if for whatever reason you choose not to or can't for some health reason, know that you too will still, your right to vote in person will be honored.
Yes, absolutely.
So with that, I see it is about 3:27. We have had a full 90 minutes of engagement and conversation. And Dianne, thank you so much for inviting me to moderate. I want to thank our amazing panelists, yourself, Tracy Gray, Isaac Bryan, to talk about these critical ballot initiatives. And Dianne, I'll punt back to you to close.
Thank you, Senator, for not only giving us more info, but the championing that you are known for, that you started many years ago, not only in foster care, but even the credit you got in Sacramento on racial justice issues this last session. So we look forward to working with you in the days, months, and years ahead. I'm actually going to give it back to one of our teammates on policy and government affairs who started us off, Grace Song, to kind of close it out for us.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Senator Mitchell, to Tracy, to Isaac and Dianne, and all the residents as well who've tuned in and shared your questions before the call and during. It was an incredibly informative time together. Just a quick reminder for everyone that we have recorded this town hall and we'll be sharing this out as well as the PowerPoint presentation. A lot of folks did ask some general questions about other propositions on the ballot. So know that they are all listed on CHC's Slate for Justice website. It's been linked in the chat a few times, but we'll make sure that website is again available to you all to read up as you prepare to vote between now and next Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you all so much again for joining and enjoy the rest of your Monday.
Don't forget to vote.